Hey, back with the Mighty Manfred, and it's time to get today's coolest conversations underway. And joining me is Larry Kennedy from the Jellybricks. Hello, Larry.
Hello, Manfred. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to have you on the phone with me. Now, the Jellybricks, you guys are from Mechanicsburg, PA, right?
That's correct.
Now, I thought you were from Harrisburg. Is that nearby or a suburb?
Well, Mechanicsburg is technically sort of a suburb of Harrisburg. So we're Harrisburg to the world, but our P.O. box is located in Mechanicsburg, which is also where we've been rehearsing since '96.
96. So,
Yes, sir.
Mechanicsburg, that's also home to Bret Michaels. You guys Poison fans?
Well, we did grow up in the shadow of Talk Dirty to Me.
Who
Although,
deserves the key to the city? Poison or the Jellybricks?
well, the Jellybricks are still definitely vying for the key, but I will say that Brett does pay attention to the community, and he does some things around here that are very nice. In fact, once upon a time, the Jellybricks had the opportunity to sing Happy Birthday to Bret Michaels' mother at a performance we played in town.
You guys are so sweet. That is so sweet. Hey, so you mentioned rehearsing in 96, so the band began in 96 then?
Yeah, it's from my end, it's really cool the way it came together. I had been in a band that had fallen apart back in Youngstown, Ohio, which is my hometown. And I had a cousin who lived in Harrisburg who was connected to some other musicians. And he invited me to come to Harrisburg to record some solo demos because I was bandless. And Garrick Chow was working as an engineer at the studio where I was recording demos. And although he and I didn't meet face-to-face when I was there, because he was away at the time, he came back and heard the songs I was working on, and he noted that I didn't have any bass parts on the recordings yet, and he was a bass player. And he essentially called me up and offered me a blind date scenario, telling me that if I would move to Harrisburg, he would round out a band for me, and we'd be on stage inside a month. And that's what I elected to do. And we've been together ever since.
Well, cool. Well, I've been curious about this Youngstown connection. You explained that. The latest album from coming out earlier this year, Youngstown Tune Up, and the track that we played just before we went into the segment here and we started chatting is about the weekend. What a great song. So you guys, from being from Youngstown, that's why you went back there to record the new album?
Yeah, I would say a lot of what and thank you for the compliment on the song, by the way. We tend to roll in a pretty organic fashion. I don't think we've had a game plan as a band for the better part of the last 15 years. So we kind of go where our muse takes us. And the gentleman who produced our previous record, Suckers, which included Rock and Roll Suicide, a good friend of mine, Frank Silver, he actually relocated from Pennsylvania back to Ohio between those two releases. And we said, well, we're going to follow Frank so we can go work with him. So I landed back in the same recording studio that I had been in with previous bands back in Youngstown and working with some good friends. We actually, we were in the studio that's owned by Pete Revere from the Deadbeat Poets. And it was just a wonderful way for us to remove ourselves from our normal lives in Central PA and really focus on music. And we didn't set out to make a record called Youngstown Tune Up. It's just that since we made the whole record there, the title sort of fell into place because it was a turn of phrase that we'd been aware of for years. It's kind of a darkly comedic thing. I think I've heard you reference on the air the fact that a Youngstown Tune Up is a nickname for a car bomb because there was a great deal of mob activity in the Youngstown area for, well, my entire life and many years before I was born. But I say darkly comedic because it's not that funny to blow people up in a car, but the phrase itself has a ring.
So let's focus a little bit on that great song, former coolest song of the week, About the Weekend. And you wrote that one, right?
That is mine. That's one of those little lightning bolt strokes of luck in my book, because I had a melody that popped into my head that wouldn't leave me alone, and
That's a good
eventually
problem to have.
yeah, I can still, in fact, it's like a dream come true for me to put two and two together, that I had this song that was rolling around in my head in my bedroom at home, and then literally maybe a year later I got to hear it coming out of the radio on Little Steven's Underground Garage, and that's as surreal as it gets for a songwriter.
Is there any one specific inspiration for that one, or is that amalgamation of experience?
Well, a lot of what I do winds up being an amalgamation, because I draw from a lot of different places. But I don't mind saying, I can tell you where it started for me was I was on a revisitation to the Please Please Me album by the Jellybricks.
The early Jellybricks, known as the Beatles.
By the Beatles, yes. And I was remembering that a lot of the reason I wound up being in a rock band in the first place was because I discovered them as a really small kid. And I just remember the excitement coming off of those early records is so much of the flavor that infected me. And I started thinking I'd really love to do a Jellybricks song that would kind of just be cut from that blueprint of the very basic two guitar, bass, drums, vocals element of that record. But I would say as the song started to come together, it took a slightly more, a little more modern feel, which is usually what happens with the Jellybricks. Right. So it doesn't sound, I don't think, overly like the Beatles, but there was a bit of the Beatles in there. It's probably the most overt Mersey beat we've ever committed to tape.
And it's excellent. And you guys made a pretty cool, actually, I'm going to rephrase that, a very cool video for that. In a world built on CGI things, seems to be just one shot and just really cleverly put together. Can you describe the video to anybody that might not have seen it and encourage them to check it out?
Well, our bass player Garrick is very clever with visual ideas, and we were looking at a limited time frame and a limited budget, and he had this notion that he thought we could do a single camera shot video that would require no editing, which would just mean less time for him to get it together in time for us to have it for people to watch it. So what it turned into is it reminded me of being back in grade school, because what we really did was put on like a mini play in front of the camera where we had a minimal number of props, and we set up a scenario of basically a lousy date which doesn't very literally attach itself to the song, but the song certainly is about a weekend that apparently didn't go well. So, but yeah, when you watch the video, you're sort of watching a couple that's first out to dinner, and then they go to the movies, then they go for a drink, and then eventually he drives her home, and every bit of it is a disaster, and it's all sort of loosely rescued in the end by a little live performance by the band.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It all happens in front of the camera. We had to do it, I think, 13 times to get it right.
And you did. It's excellent. So, Larry, now you and we have met before in person.
It was great.
That's right. My band, The Woggles, we played with you guys in Harrisburg at Stage on Her. What a bizarre, great place. How often do you guys play out, and how important is playing out live to you guys?
Well, over the course of the years, we've sort of run in every style possible. When we first started out, we took every gig that came down the pike, and we've been fortunate enough to get to travel a fair amount. We've never made it outside of the United States, but we've been on both coasts and lots of places in between. But as we're just about to turn 19 years old in January, our lives have taken their own course, and so we've always adjusted as we've gone. So nowadays, I would say we're a little bit more focused. When we put out a new record, we try to get out and play quite a bit more and get to new places where we know we have fans. But we're just maybe a little more selective about the kind of shows that we do. I feel like I sound like that manager from Spinal Tap. The audiences are becoming more selective.
Well, what's up for you guys next then? Is it another record on the horizon for 2015?
I'm not sure if we're going to have one out in 2015, although I think there will be new songs. Not sure about a new record or not, but then again, I think Youngstown Tune-Up started out as an idea for an EP that turned into a full-length LP, and that's sort of why I say we do things very organically. It just we sort of know what we want to do when we know it. So we have new songs, and we're working on that, and we are planning on getting into the studio to do some more recording, but yeah. The best part of it is that I'm amazed that after we've been together for this long, that we still have new ideas and the kind of enthusiasm that we do to continue to do it, because it really is that way. It's like we're kids. When we get together, it's time's frozen in our teens. We're still just having a blast.
Yeah, we won't call it an arrested adolescence. We'll call it a continual life experience.
Well, I like the sound of that. Although at times in the past, my father thought maybe it was an arrested situation.
Hey, Larry, we're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks so much for speaking with me today on our Coolest Conversations.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We appreciate the support of the Underground Garage so much, and of you, Manfred. And we had a blast playing with the Woggles. I hope we get to do it again sometime.
We're going to work that out. And we're going to go out now with an older Jellybricks track. This tune off their Suckers release. It's Rock and Roll Suicide in Little Steven's Underground Garage.